Ohio State's D-line will dominate opponents in 2024.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to a Monday edition of Locked On Buckeyes here on Monday, May 13th in the year 2024. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens podcast, and today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's what LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Ohio State's defensive line is one of those units this year that I did not expect would have the pieces that it currently has, when Tuimoloau and Sawyer and especially Tyleik Williams could have easily declared for the NFL draft, which concluded a few weeks ago. I thought, hey, the Buckeyes would have possibly Kenyatta Jackson Jr. and Cade Curry on the outside and ends, and then you maybe have McDonald or Hero Canoe stepping up to play the other D-tackle spot. No. Tuimoloau stays. Sawyer stays. Tyleik Williams stays, and Ty Hamilton is still here, which is why this unit will dominate opponents every single week in the fall. That's one of the reasons, but it goes to just talk about in totality. Ohio State's going to have every player on the D-line drafted in the next draft. You might say, Jay, that's a bold prediction, but look at what you have currently right now. You have two of the best defensive ends in the conference, not the country. Not going that far yet. Simply in the conference, you have two of the best defensive ends in the entire conference in the Big Ten, which is littered with a lot of really good players at the edge position. Tuimoloau is going to be really, really good. Sawyer is going to be really, really good. I think both of them have a chance to play themselves into being first-round picks in the upcoming draft in 2025. But Tyleik Williams is one of those guys that I call a game wrecker, but can hit you and doesn't have to come off the field. He's a three-down guy. Run, stopper. He has different moves in the pass game. But one of my favorite attributes about Tyleik Williams that stands at a 320 plus. I mean, he's a mammoth human being that moves very well, exceptionally well for a mammoth human being. Tyleik Williams does a great job of disrupting passes by simply getting his arms up and getting in the way of the ball once it's released by the quarterback. I think that's one of those things that you say, hey, aren't guys taught that at a young age? And I would simply sit up here and say, yes. Guys are taught that at a young age. I was taught that at a young age. But being taught that and applying what you're taught to the game and then actually doing and applying it consistently, that's a different story. So yes, Tuimoloau is going to dominate. I do believe Sawyer's going to dominate. But Tyleik Williams is a headliner. He is a guy that every single week, who is the person that guys are going to try to pinpoint and focus on first on the D-line is Tyleik Williams. And when you find a way to get pressure, consistent pressure from the middle of the defensive line, and you have one guy that can wreck anything of the interior, that's a great formula for success. But when you have a seasoned vet like Ty Hamilton, who I do believe can take steps to make sure and solidify his spot as being a drafted player in the 2025 NFL draft in Ty Hamilton, that speaks to just the solid piece that he is. No, he's not Tyleik Williams. I don't think anybody thinks he's going to take a major step in that direction in the fall. He's not Sawyer and he's not Tuimoloau. He's his own creature, his own person, his own player, which is fine, which is what you want. But you need guys like him that can fill in and step in when called upon, especially when starting on a role in the upcoming season. Man, it's going to be so much fun to watch. Tuimoloau was one of those guys when he came out of high school. I was on this show talking about how good he'll be as a Buckeye. And I do think if the coaches don't keep him contained and don't put him in a box, but they simply say, look, we know the kind of player you are. We have seen you do some things that are otherworldly, things that we don't really think about. Thinking about that Penn State game a couple years ago where he had his hands a part of 4 different turnovers, all 4 turnovers the Buckeyes had that day, he was a part of. I think he had a strip sack on the quarterback that day. I forget who the Penn State quarterback was that year. Sean Clifford. There you go. I believe it was Sean Clifford. Sean Clifford's last year. I believe he had a strip sack. I believe he had an interception where he dropped into coverage. I think he had another interception where he was trying to get chop blocked by the D lineman, quickly got his hands down, went up for the interception, ran the thing back in. And I remember one person, not saying names, who came on a show and said, not this show, on hit the show, this individual host daily, he ended up saying, well, that's an ordinary play. And he could have been sarcastic, but it didn't surely seem like he was being sarcastic when he said it. And I'm sitting here thinking, that's not a routine play, sir. If it's routine, it would be routinely seen by you and I when we watch football. That was not a routine play. But Tuimoloau, I think there's a level of his athleticism that can be tapped into. And once that bad boy is unleashed, watch out. I remember last year coming on this show and having a little rant talking about once that dog is let out the cage, talking about Michael Hall Jr. And I think Tuimoloau is one of those guys that's really, 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 really good. Don't get me wrong. But there's something else that can be tapped into. And once he is let out the cage, and once he is doing things in a great way, opponents, watch out. But Jack Sawyer last year took a step in the right direction at the end of the year. His leadership stepped up. You also saw something start to click with him in the second half of the season. And what do we see from Jack Sawyer? We saw him do some phenomenal things and make some big plays in that time period. If Jack Sawyer finds a way to continue the upward trajectory of his career and of his play, watch out. He could easily be playing himself into not only being one of the best defensive ends in the conference, he could be the best DN in the conference and one of the best in the country if he continues to progress in the way that he did last year. And this is a big reason why. There's this fearsome foursome, dynamic duo on the outside, dynamic duo on the inside. If this fearsome foursome does what we think they can do, we could be looking at a Buckeye defense that, yes, Lathan Ransom and Caleb Downs are going to get attention. Igman Olsen and Burke and Hancock, they're going to get attention. Simon and Stiles and Hicks, they're going to get attention. But the fearsome foursome could be the big reason why their jobs are so easy at the linebacker and defensive back positions. Why? Because it all starts up front. If you get pressure from the front four, if you get consistent confusion out of the front four, or confusion for the offensive linemen, if they continue to make problems for the opposing offense down after down after down, what does it do? It makes the job of the linebackers easier. They're able to be freer to roam, move sideline to sideline, and make tackles. It makes it easier for guys like Burke and Igman Olsen and Hancock to lock up their guy. It makes it easier for Ransom and Downs to do their job oh so well. I think it starts up front with this fearsome foursome that Ohio State has, a unit that has a chance to not only be one of the best in the conference, but to be one of the best in the country. Now, the fearsome foursome is great, but what does the depth at this position look like? We'll dive into that next. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. This episode is brought to you by Billiards Plus. Billiards Plus has the best selection of pool tables, game tables, shuffleboard tables, and more, and the best service in Central Ohio. Everything you need for in-home and even backyard entertainment is at Billiards Plus. Billiards Plus carries the best pool tables from Brunswick, Allhausen, Canada, billiards, and more. And the grills, whether you like charcoal or gas or wood-fired, Billiards Plus has a perfect setup for all grillers. They are family-owned and operated. And when you talk to the staff at Billiards Plus, you know you're talking to an expert who won't steer you wrong. No matter the season, Billiards Plus has you covered for all your indoor and outdoor entertainment needs. Kenny, Sarah, and the whole staff will always go above and beyond to give you the best customer service in the industry. Billiards Plus. Visit their showroom on Dublin Center Drive in Dublin. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Ohio State's defensive line has a chance to be really, really, really special this year with the fearsome force. And that might be what we utilize for the rest of this show this year. Fearsome foursome. It wasn't the phrase that I planned for the day of the show, but here we are. But the front four of Tuimoloau, Sawyer, Hamilton, and Williams, that fearsome foursome is great. But what does the depth look like at this position, especially this one, a unit that we know Larry Johnson is going to rotate, wants to have 8 guys that can play at any given time, possibly 10. Do they have that this year? I think they do. When you think about the front four of Sawyer, Hamilton, Williams, and Tuimoloau, the next four easily Caden Curry, Caden McDonald, Hero Kanua, Kenyatta Jackson Jr. are guys that I believe can quickly and easily step up and fill those roles. And if you want 10 and plus one, I think Jason Moore is a guy that they need another defensive tackle. He is a guy that can step up in that role and do it quickly. But also, think about this. Tywone Malone is still here, a former Ole Miss Rebel that transferred with Igman before last season. Battled, I believe, some injuries, didn't play on the field that much last year, but I do believe Malone will be the next guy up after Canoe and McDonald to get on the field. But then I wonder how much Mitchell Melton and Edric Houston. Now, Mitchell Melton is a redshirt senior, has battled a lot of injuries throughout his Buckeye career. And so I do think he's going to be a big piece of the pie this year. But is it possible that Ohio State has another guy? Yeah, 4 D-line, D-ends. You have a 5th in Mitchell Melton. Do they have 6 in Edric Houston? Now, it's one thing. He is a true freshman. And what we saw last year was we saw Sawyer and Tuimoloau. You saw Kenyatta Jackson Jr. You got Caden Curry, but you really didn't see many other guys play consistently. I think Mitchell Melton will be the 5th, and I think he can play consistently. Hopefully he stays healthy. But if Edric Houston is the kind of guy that I think he is, and I don't really care to say that he flashes in practice or not, because to me that word means you're probably going to redshirt, not play that much this year. I do think we can find an area for Edric Houston this year. But think about it. When I say an area, he's not going to play much. But you're a true freshman in a room that is full of older guys, older vets that are going to play a lot. He's not going to play that much this year, which is fine. Now, some of you might be out there saying, Jay, what about Joshua Mickens? Is he going to play this year? Probably not, and it's okay. Not a bad thing at all. He had to add weight. When I saw him play in high school at my alma mater, what did I find? That boy's skinny. And honestly, I didn't really see an Ohio State offer or commitment coming from him when I saw him play. I saw him play numerous times throughout his career at LC. He was a good football player, really, really good. But did I see the consistency that I thought would be needed for a guy to play at Ohio State? No, I did not. But the Buckeyes saw something else, and I saw Mickens play. Okay, cool. Mickens get out there and do some things. I don't think he'll play that much this year, and that's fine. Continue to add that healthy weight. But that's the length and a quickness off the line of scrimmage that I do believe will be a great asset for him down the road, just not this year. But no, the Buckeyes defensive line, there's a lot of conversations about the corners and how good the corners are going to be, how the corners are going to be 2 deep and 2+ in that unit. Thinking about Denzel Burke and Calvin Simpson Hunt. Then you got Igman and Jermaine Matthews Jr. Then you got Jordan Hancock and Lorenzo Styles Jr. some of y'all are drooling over Aaron Scott Jr. and Miles Lockhart and Bryce West. Cool. I would drool when thinking about how good those guys might be potentially. I wouldn't say would. I might. They're going to be really, really good. I do think this D-line unit too deep, man, it rivals the corners as far as being one of the only units that is too deep. Now, running back's a little bit weird. I don't think Ohio State has at too deep. Their backup quarterback is like solidified right now, as you know what he's going to provide for you. I can't say that yet. Running back, you're going to play two guys. So if you want to say too deep, and probably would go to running back because you got two guys that if they play like you think they will, they're going to be 2 second-round picks, mainly because running backs generally aren't drafted in the first round. I don't think these guys right now are special enough or that special to be first-round picks. I mean, you got to be otherworldly. I mean, J.K. Dobbins had 2,000 rushing yards in one season, was a second-round pick. So, I mean, think about what that means in college football, 2,000-yard rusher, and only a second-round pick. You got to be stupid special. Henderson is stupid special in some areas, but I don't think he has what it takes right now to be a first-round pick. That might be something that happens down the road. But no, this D-line unit, man, this thing's going to be so much fun to watch. And as I think about this unit, the front four, the second four, and then the guys that will rally out, the 10 or maybe 11-man rotation in some games, not all games, but some games, it's going to be so much fun to watch. Now, if you see games where it's like 3 and out here, 3 and out here, 0-2 and a fumble, you're like, man, the defense is never on the field. Why are their numbers so low? Well, it's because of the statement you just made. They're never on the field. And that could easily be what this unit is going to be for the Buckeyes. I do have some question marks, and we talked about some on this side of the ball with linebackers. We'll dive more into that down the road. I really hope the Buckeyes are trying to get a guy in the portal right now that's still there because, well, you need one. But if they don't, you need one at linebacker. If they don't, this unit is going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun to watch. The hiccup just hit me there. This is one of those days, recorded at the end of Mother's Day. Mother's Day was fun. Got to celebrate. My wife, who is a mom-to-be, will be a mother in July, beginning of July. And then also my mom, and got to my parents' house, and my sister-in-law was there, who was tending to my nephew, Hayes, my brother, and his wife's only child. And, I mean, hey, man, Mother's Day was fun. It was a fun journey, but it was a long day. Woke up early, drove to church, drove to my parents' house, spent some time there, drove back home, watched the end of the Pacers game. I'm like, this day's been pretty lengthy, but it was a fun, enjoyable day. Just like it will be fun and enjoyable to watch this unit play football in the fall. Now, we talked about the unit, multiple sides and portions of the unit. But there's one key part of Larry Johnson's career that I do believe will be pivotal and key to the success of the defensive line at Ohio State. I'll tell you what it is next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It's winner take all in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. And maybe some of you are looking forward to Game 4 between the Celtics and the Cavs tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern on TNT. The Boston Celtics are up 2-1 in the series. Many of you are not happy or pleased with that. And maybe you're saying, Jay, I want to go money line. I don't want to go point spreads. Well, I would honestly say, hey, if you go Cavs to win money line at plus 265, you'll make some money. You could do it at FanDuel Sportsbook. Where do you go? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. I'll tell you again, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen or first watch of every single day. Larry Johnson is one of those guys that I'm very thankful to still be on Ohio State's coaching staff. There's been a lot of conversations over the past few years and really over the past couple years, and even this offseason early on, there's a lot of conversation about Larry Johnson potentially not being on the Buckeyes coaching staff this year. Maybe at the end of this coming year, he will retire. I don't know when he's going to retire. I don't think he recruits like he's going to retire. Because honestly, if you're trying to recruit like you're going to retire, well, you're not doing the right thing for the athlete you're talking to, and you're doing them a disservice, and you're doing the university a disservice, and yourself a disservice. So I don't think Larry Johnson is doing himself a disservice or anybody involved in it while he's recruiting these elite athletes. Because if he was, I think with the man of integrity that he is, I think he would end up retiring. But I do think there's one attribute and one part of Larry Johnson's career that's going to be very, very pivotal to the Buckeyes' success in the fall. That is his experience. And you want to say, Jay, you just talked about how elite this team is going to be and how special this unit's going to be. Why does Larry Johnson's experience need to be a factor in how this unit plays in the fall? Think about what we're talking about when we're talking about Ohio State football. You're talking about an expanded Big Ten. And Larry Johnson's been around for a long, long time. He's seen a lot of football. He has a coaching of football in different areas, different stops along the way. And so it's not just he's been at Ohio State for a long period of time, which he has. He's also been at a few other stops. So there's a lot of things he's seen. There's a lot of changes he has seen this year. So early in the year, you may want to say, Jay, Ohio State, well, they got Akron week 1, game 2, Western Michigan, game 3, Marshall, game 4, Michigan State. Shouldn't all of those be cakewalks and they should just run right over them? Yes, but Larry Johnson can use his experience to get some of the younger guys some rest. Remember the guys we talked about earlier that I do believe would be very, very pivotal as far as backup roles in Caden Curry, Caden McDonald, Hero Canoe, Kenyatta Jackson Jr., Mitchell Melton, Tywone Malone, then potentially seeing Jason Moore, and the very end of that list, Edric Houston on the roster, him playing. And if they want to use that jack position and put Artvell Reese in there and say, hey, be a stand-up guy, not just stand up off the field, but stand up 2-point stance on the field and be like, hey, be that 2-point stance guy, be the rover, be the guy that can really wreak havoc and be that wild card, that joker, that rover, whatever you want to call that position, be that guy. Well, Larry Johnson has to know how to use those first 4 games, especially with one of them being a Big Ten game, one of that Big Ten game being a road game in East Lansing, which is a tough place to play. Now, we don't know if that's going to be a night game or early game. We don't know that yet. But what I do know is this. This stuff is going to be tough. This stuff is going to be difficult. And when it comes to Ohio State, in this moment, with this unit, Larry Johnson's experience can help build some confidence with this unit. It's going to be needed. And then after that, you have Iowa. That's a home game. Then you have to go on the road to Eugene at Oregon. That's going to be so tough, especially after the Iowa game where Iowa is a physical team, a mentally sound team, a well-disciplined coach team. That's going to be a tough game. Now, that's at home. Then you have to go to Eugene, Oregon at Autzen Stadium, inside Autzen Stadium for that game. You got Nebraska, you got a bye week, then you got Nebraska. You got Penn State on the road. The Nebraska game is at home. You got Purdue at home. You got Northwestern and Evanston, Illinois. That might be played at Wrigley Field. You got Indiana at home. Then, of course, the game against the team up north. That is at home. And I mentioned his experience. It's not just experience on making sure the older guys get better and progress and potentially raise their draft stock. But Larry Johnson has to figure out, maybe some guys that I think would be a nose tackle might not be a nose tackle. They might be a 3-tech. Okay, cool. Maybe a guy's a 3-tech and he's more of a – maybe he starts as a 3-tech and he goes back to being a nose tackle. Cool. Maybe you find out a guy, hey, I didn't think he could play nose tackle. I'm over 3-tech, but he can play both. He can cross-train. Okay, we have something here. And Larry Johnson's experience is going to be very, very pivotal with this unit, not only with the immediate future with the season, but also with what's coming up after the season in the following April with the NFL draft, but also with the guys that'll be in Ohio State, in Columbus, after the 2024 season is completed, playing in 2025, 2026, and beyond. Because if Larry Johnson sets this up properly this year, man, you look at next year's D-line, with the experience they can get this year, Caden Curry, next year's season, will raise the draft out, could get drafted. Caden McDonald, Hero Canoe, Kenyatta Jackson Jr. You could easily have a year for Ohio State where you have all 4 guys that are starters this year get drafted. Follow it up the next year, assuming this all stays the same. Jackson Jr., Canoe, McDonald, and Curry where all of them get drafted. And even then, if Mitchell Melton is a guy that's in a backup role but plays a lot and shows some promise at the edge position, what could you find? Mitchell Melton could get drafted down the road as well. So it's not only an immediate conversation for the Buckeyes on the D-line of the upcoming season. This is the conversation that has so many different angles. Getting 4 guys drafted. If all 4 guys do great this year and Larry Johnson has success in the 2024 season, 2025 draft could see 4 Buckeyes defensive linemen drafted. What also could happen? You work with the young guys and the younger guys and the guys that are in the backup roles, and they progress and get better and get the right experience this year. You could have 4 defensive linemen drafted in the 2026 draft. But what else could you find with the guys that are starters? Not only do they get drafted, you can have multiple first-round picks on the D-line, the 2024 draft, in the 2025 draft, and 2026 draft. Why? Because of Larry Johnson's experience. Larry Johnson is one of those guys that, as everyone, and even myself on this show, and some guests that come on the show, there are a lot of guys out there that love Larry Johnson and what he brings to the table. I am one of them. But at the same time, you also have to realize this. Loving it is great. The players have to be coachable. The players have to understand what's going on. And the players have to believe in what the coach is preaching. And I do believe all of these players here believe and are picking up what Larry Johnson is putting down. Is going to be scary for the opposition in the fall, but also scary for, the teams next year. The teams that have to face Buckeyes in the upcoming 2024 NFL season based off Larry Johnson, 2025 NFL season based off Larry Johnson. Larry Johnson is one of those coaches. They got retained when Ryan Day got promoted to being the Buckeyes head football coach, but also has been retained. Tony Alford, no longer here. There's other guys that were here that are no longer here. But Larry Johnson did something special. Larry Johnson is one of those guys that are what my corner, and I'm glad he's coaching the Buckeyes D-line in the fall. I am glad to be back. Mother's Day was fun. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to find out what's going to come next. We got another holiday here in about a month from now. But before that, my wife and I have some big things happening in our lives, and so there's holidays and there are baby showers, multiple. Yeah, our little man's having multiple baby showers. Why? See that special, but also there's Buckeye stuff coming on. Buckeye recruiting. This is the place you want to stay. As excited as I am about the Buckeye football season, I'm equally as excited for the Buckeye recruiting. I'm more excited about my son coming in. Not going to lie about that, but look forward to getting some Buckeye news and notes coming your way later this week and throughout the upcoming weeks as official visit season is right around the corner. You can follow me on X at jstevens07. You can send all of your emails to jstevens317@gmail.com. It's been Locked on Buckeyes here on a Monday. We'll see you next time.